Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we are finally going to be reviewing the all-new Mercedes G63 4x4 squared, the G-Wagon that is insanely lifted. Before we get into this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Mercedes-Benz of Salt Lake City, Utah for giving me some time with this 4x4 squared. I'm going to include a link to their website in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. And then I do want to mention something before we dive into the video. This particular 4x4 squared has been sitting in storage for a little bit, and so it's pretty dusty, and on top of that it happens to have the factory matte paint, which requires special cleaning protocols, and obviously that means that if you just take it through a regular car wash, you're going to damage the paint, and so that's why there's gonna be a little bit of dust on the outside. I hope that you guys understand, and with that being said, let's get into the review. Powering this is a twin-turbo 4-liter V8 that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Fuel economy is 11 miles per gallon around town and then 13 on the highway, with power outputs being 577 horsepower and then 627 pound-feet of torque. Now, before we go over the front end of the 4x4 squared, I do want to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So the first element that is oh so cool is the rack here at the top. So you guys can see we actually have marker lights there, and we have some light bars on either side. And yes, it is completely made out of carbon fiber. It has such a unique appearance. Now, popping down below, this has the regular G-Wagon hood. So you guys can see the Mercedes emblem there in the center. We've got the turn signals here on either side, or indicators rather, and it just looks so cool. And again, the matte paint, even though a little bit dusty, looks fantastic. Now, I've got these really cool LED lights, and I like how everything's all blacked out with the bezel. And then notice the Mercedes logo also blacked out, and then we have our AMG badge here off to the side. And then you've got the brush guard here at the bottom because, again, this is a 63 version G-Wagon. And putting it all together, this thing absolutely means business. Now, when I looked up the ground clearance figure, the thing that came up was 13.8 inches, which, I mean, looks pretty accurate. That's absolutely crazy. And just to give you guys an idea of the scale, that's a Wrangler on 35s. That's the G63 4x4 squared. I mean, it literally makes the Wrangler look like it needs to hit the gym, because it kind of does compared to this thing with portal axles. Now, coming around the side here, our tire wheel setup is 325, 55, 22 in the front and over in the rear. And you guys can see the wheels have been all blacked out. And then you've got the giant G63 brake rotors and calipers. I mean, it's just so crazy to see this on an off-road vehicle, but I think it looks so cool. Now, here's a quick look at the front suspension. Now, this does still have independent front suspension like a regular G-Wagon. And then you guys can see we've got giant carbon fiber fender flares, and then you got the mud flap down below. And I just realized I said regular G-Wagon as if a G-Wagon's even normal. That's Now, it's kind of hard to tell, but you've got more carbon fiber here on the side. You got the AMG logo, you've got V8 bi-turbo badge, and then you can see more carbon fiber trim down below. And then we have the side steps here that are very necessary with this 4x4 squared. And then you still have the exhaust tips that poke out the side in normal G63 fashion. And then again, more of that carbon fiber there for the fender flares. And then here is your full side view with the G63 4x4 squared. Again, this thing looks absolutely insane in person, and just it makes the Wrangler look so small. Now, here's a key fob. We have our unlock function, our lock function, Mercedes logo there on the front, and then you have your little AMG logo there on the back. Now, in normal G-Wagon fashion, you've got really nice leather trim here on the tailgate. And then you guys can see we've got more carbon fiber on the grab handle. And it looks like we've got a little bit of extra reinforcement compared to what we normally have here on the back with the tailgate, which you guys will understand when you see the spare tire. But this is normal G-Wagon here in the rear. We've still got a cargo cover here in the rear. You've got your full outlet there in the back, as well as a first aid kit. And so, other than the fact that the loading floor is obviously quite a bit higher, it's all the same. Now, this part actually amazes me. This is actually really easy to get back into place despite how large the tire is. And well, speaking of spare tire, here she is, full-size spare on the back. You guys can see it says 4x4 squared there in the center. You've got all the reinforcement so it can hold the weight. That is so cool looking. And then you can actually see we've got more carbon fiber here at the top with marker lights. So yes, this is wide enough that it needs marker lights, which is another cool thing about the 4x4 squared. Anyways, parking sensors here at the bottom. And then you actually have this lower bumper thing here. So this is because of crash test regulation here in the US. The 4x4 squared is so tall that it has to have this like lower bumper thing added to it, which just adds to the cool factor. Now I purposely overexposed this shot so you guys can really see everything that's happening underneath with the portal axles. So this is the whole rear setup, and you can kind of see the front. I'll give you guys a shot of the front in just a moment. But this is a very expensive way to engineer more ground clearance, because it obviously moves the entire axle vertically. So then again, you don't have as much stuff hanging down, and it just looks so cool. And then here is that setup in the front, and you actually have a skid plate protection underneath. And putting it all together, this is definitely the definition of road presence. It is absolutely enormous. It looks so cool, and you're never gonna see these on the road. I mean, other than this, I have yet to pretty much see one in person. Now, popping inside, this is normal G-Wagon interior. So you guys can see we've got really nice leather trim here, and then also down below, and then look at the carbon fiber, and then the leather trim extends to the bottom. Got the Burmester sound system, and then we've got heated seats here for the rear passengers. And we've got the headrests that kind of look like a droid head from Star Wars in a way. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, look at the beautiful leather trim down below. And then you guys can see we've got vents here in the back for the rear passengers. They have their own climate zone on top of that. And then it's normal G-Wagon interior in terms of space and dimensions and all of that. And also AMG plaque. And then taking a look at the front door panel, it's identical to the rear with the material use and the design. And also I love the grab handles here. We've got all of our seat adjustments, memory seat function, heated and ventilated seat function. We've got all of our window controls here at the top, our mirror adjustments. The mirrors do power fold in, and they have blind spot monitoring. Man, I feel like the 4x4 squared should have like an extra Shackle approved badge, because this thing way crazier than a regular G-Wagon. But here are the seats, and you can see AMG badge, and then look how it's perforated all down the center. And then you've got your pedals down below. We got like our light control here, and you can see with the steering wheel adjustment. And then look at all the nice trim right there. Now normally I don't show getting into a vehicle, but I feel like this is a special occasion because it's 4x4 squared. So you have to like lift your leg up a bunch, and there's no grab handle, so you kind of have to do like a single leg squat, and then you can get your other foot up. And I accidentally honked the horn, but I'm in. Now taking a look at the steering wheel, this is the normal AMG steering wheel. So you've got really nice leather trim here at the top and at the bottom with our AMG logo. And then the golf ball texture here on the side. We've got the AMG paddle shifters on the back. Notice we got our controls here for the center screen. We've got our cruise control. We have the controls here for the infotainment system, and then our volume controls. And then we have our turn signal / windshield wiper stalk, and then the column shifter on the back as well. Now we have a full digital gauge cluster here in the center, and I like how you've got like the carbon fiber there in the background on the digital thing. That's a pretty cool touch there. But just like other G-Wagons, you basically have all these different screens you can scroll through. It's kind of like a secondary infotainment system. But notice we've got our 4x4 squared performance page here, which is pretty cool. As if anyone would take a 4x4 square. Maybe someone would take it on the track. But yeah, really easy to use gauge cluster. Again, like I said, kind of like a secondary infotainment system. Now over to the main infotainment system, we have a 360 camera system, as you can see, instead of every single angle here of the 4x4 squared. It's so cool to see the brush guard there in the front view. But yeah, really good resolution with the camera. Now as to the rest of the infotainment system, this is, I believe, the last Mercedes that actually does not have a touchscreen. So as you can see, when I press the screen, nothing happens. Everything's controlled via a dial, a keypad, or the little button on the steering wheel. What I will say though is it's actually a pretty easy system to use, and once you get used to it, you get used to it. And last thing I want to mention about the infotainment system is, yes, we got massaging seats. So we've got carbon fiber trim around the infotainment system, and then you can see with the dash, really nice leather trim, and then it actually says G63 4x4 squared on the grab handle. So I've always been a fan of Mercedes vents because they just look really high quality. I mean, look at the material use, and they're just cool to use. Now I've got the locking differentials here in the center. They're labeled 1, 2, and 3 in the order that you'd use them. So center, rear, and then front. And then down below that, we've got our climate controls, dual zone climate. And then we have carbon fiber that actually covers up the cup holders, which is really cool. And then this is that little keypad / dial system I was talking to you guys about with the infotainment system. And then we've got our volume control next to it. And then next to that, we've got our little exhaust mode. And then this is for the 360 camera system, your low range, because it does have a 2-speed transfer case. This is for your stability control. And then you can adjust the suspension to make it firmer or softer, your manual mode, and then your drive mode select. And well, speaking of drive modes, they'll pop up here in the center. You guys can see we've got a Sport, Sport Plus, Comfort, Individual, Slippery. And then I also do want to mention, when you go into four-wheel drive, I believe it does open up more drive modes for you. Now here is the center console. You can see that got pretty good storage space there. Got some USBs. And again, more really nice leather trim, and that's all along the side. And even down here at the bottom, like this is a place you'll never look, but look, quilted leather, beautiful. And then got the glove box, which it's a normal G-Wagon glove box. And then I guess while we're over here, this actually has a rear view camera mirror, which if you're wondering why, look at the view. The tire is so big that it literally takes up pretty much the entire window. So I think that, yeah, it's kind of a necessity with this. And then we've got a sunroof, and then really nice headliner here, normal G63 fashion. So here's the window sticker for this G63 4x4 squared, even though it doesn't say squared, that's what everyone calls it because that's what it is. And then here is all the standard equipment, including portal axles standard on this. You can see all of the rest of the standard equipment. And then we've got our base MSRP of $349,000. And then, like I said, this one has the special matte paint, which is a $4,000 option. What a lot of people actually do is they'll do paint protection film over the paint so they can wash it normally. That's just something that people do with these matte paints. But here are the rest of the options on this particular one, including the night package, which makes everything all blacked out. I think this is a really cool spec. But $360,185 is the total MSRP. Now, that's not the market value on these. So since these are so rare and so hard to get in, a G-Wagon on top of that, the actual market value on these, from what I saw doing my research this morning, was anywhere between, it's a pretty big range, but I saw them going for $500,000 to $600,000, even $700,000, depending on where it is in the US. And so, yeah, these go for quite a bit above original MSRP. And let's sum things up. Okay, so let's talk about visibility here on the G-Wagon 4x4 squared. So here's your visibility over the hood. Both of the mirrors, you do have blind spot monitoring. And throughout the rest of the rear, again, it's not great, but that's why we have the rear view camera mirror. Now, this particular G-Wagon 4x4 squared, I can't drive this on the road or anything, but I do have to kind of get this back to where it was. And I can actually drive this around the lot a little bit. So I know it's not the most exciting thing on the planet. I guess if you happen to own a 4x4 squared and you want me to review it and you live in Utah, let me know. But anyways, this is such a cool vehicle. It really does drive super special. So first off, I mean, you feel like you are in just a massive tank of a thing. It is so high off the ground. And again, the G-Wagon, with its build quality where everything's just super sturdy feeling, it has that tank-like feel. And the thing that's just so crazy is just the amount of ground clearance this has. And so like this lot kind of goes all over the place, right? You guys can see it has like dips and undulations and everything. And it just goes over all the bumps. It doesn't even care. It really doesn't. It's such a hilarious experience. And the thing to note is I own a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392, and that obviously has solid front and rear axles. This has solid rear axle, independent front suspension. This is easier to drive, believe it or not. Even though this is massive, like this is pretty much, I think, as wide as like a Ford Raptor, it's easier to drive than the Wrangler because of the independent front suspension. And I don't know if the portal axles, like, you know, help out, because other than just ground clearance, but it seems like when you put it all together, it's just like turning radius is not as bad as you'd think for a four-wheel drive lifted G-Wagon, right? It's just absolutely crazy. So yeah, like I said, not the most exciting driving on the planet, but this basically, it drives, at least from what I've been able to perceive in the parking lot, it pretty much feels like a G-Wagon, but you're higher up off the ground. And because you're higher up off the ground, there's a little bit more body roll, right? And also like the suspension's squishier because you've got more travel and everything, again, with the lift and all that. So yeah, if you want the ultimate G-Wagon, that's really what the 4x4 squared is. And I'm just happy that Mercedes decided to make this, because I mean, we've got this crazy SUV, lifted SUV, that's got 13.8 inches of ground clearance, and it's got almost 600 horsepower. I mean, seriously, like, what more could you ask for out of a vehicle? Yeah, I will say though, turning radius in certain tight spaces isn't great. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about this 4x4 squared, and let me know if you would, let's just pretend like you have all the money in the world. If you have all the money in the world, would you pick this over a regular G63 or a G550? And well, my answer is yeah, duh. if money's no option, definitely picking this thing. It's a sweet ride.